held its first debate over the weekend.
The economy is expected to expand 2.5% this year.
Boosting Korea's ties with its global partners on the sidelines of the Status UN summit.
A massive drone attack on Ukraine overnight on Monday and Tuesday.
Arirang. Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. President Lee Jae-myung has embarked on a 10-day trip, which includes stops in the Middle East and Africa. He's scheduled to visit the UAE, Egypt, and South Africa, as well as Turkey, as he seeks to widen the scope of pragmatic diplomacy to the global south. South Korea's biggest firms, including Samsung, Hyundai Motors, SK, and LG, have pledged to make massive domestic investments, amid concerns that expanding U.S. investment in exchange for lower tariffs could reduce jobs and draw capital away from home. Following U.S. approval for South Korea to build nuclear-powered submarines, the U.S. Chief of Naval Operations says it will be natural for Washington to expect Seoul to use one to help counter China. We begin today with President Lee Jae-myung's foreign trip, which includes Africa and the Middle East. The president left Seoul this morning to visit the UAE, Egypt, and the G20 summit in Africa before a stop in Turkey. Our top office correspondent Song Yoo-jin starts us off.
President Lee Jae-myung is set for his longest overseas trip since taking office, a 10-day four-nation tour that begins Monday.
저는 다음 주 G20 정상회의 참석자 남아프리카 공화국으로 출국합니다.
The president will attend the two-day G20 Leader Summit in South Africa, where members will discuss solidarity, equality, and sustainability.
We will make sure that the visions we set out at the APEC leaders meeting, such as creating a global AI society and promoting recovery and growth, will be discussed at the G20 as well. We will also share our fiscal and climate policies so that South Korea can help lead relevant policy discussions.
Before and after the G20 summit, Lee will visit three Middle Eastern nations, the UAE, Egypt, and Turkey. His first stop will be the United Arab Emirates for a state visit.
The UAE is our only special strategic partner in the Middle East. Through this visit, President Lee's first to the region since taking office, we plan to expand cooperation beyond the four key areas of investment, defense, nuclear power, and energy, into advanced technology, healthcare, and culture.
In Abu Dhabi, Lee will hold a summit with President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, followed by an MOU signing ceremony and lunch. The MOUs will cover areas including artificial intelligence, business cooperation, and defense. The president will also meet business leaders from both countries, as well as the Korean Special Forces stationed in the UAE. He will then travel to Egypt, marking the 30th anniversary of diplomatic ties between the two countries. Alongside a summit with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, Lee will deliver a lecture at Cairo University outlining the administration's Middle East strategy. For his last stop following the G20 summit in South Africa, President Lee will make a state visit to Turkey, where he is expected to discuss strengthening the country's strategic partnership in defense, nuclear energy, and biotechnology with President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Having wrapped up major trade and security negotiations with the United States, President Lee now turns to an extensive round of multilateral and bilateral diplomacy. His trip this time is expected to widen the scope of South Korea's pragmatic diplomacy to the global south. 송유진, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the U.S. Chief of Naval Operations visited South Korea and said it would be natural for Washington to expect Seoul to use a nuclear-powered submarine in the future to help counter growing threats from China. Now, the comments came after the United States officially approved South Korea's pursuit of its first nuclear-powered submarine. Our Lee Seung-jae explains more.
The United States Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Daryl Caudill, said it would be a natural expectation for Washington to anticipate South Korea using a nuclear-powered submarine in the future to help counter growing Chinese threats.
Yeah, I think the United States would expect partnership, again, working as an alliance together to meet our combined goals on what the United States considers to be our pacing threat, which is China.
He added that with such a capability, the United States would expect allied cooperation to meet combined goals against what Washington considers its primary pacing threat. He noted that South Korea shares many of the same concerns regarding China and that the new platform should be seen as part of the broader strategic equation. His remarks came after the United States officially approved South Korea's pursuit of its first nuclear-powered submarine. The decision was included in a joint fact sheet summarizing the summit between President Lee Jae-myung and President Donald Trump on October 29th. Washington continues to encourage allies to increase defense spending and contribute to collective defense efforts amid a deepening strategic rivalry with China. During the summit in Gyeongju, President Lee requested U.S. approval for nuclear-fueled supplies for conventionally armed submarines, arguing that the move would help track North Korean and Chinese vessels and ease operational burdens on U.S. forces. Admiral Caudill said a nuclear-powered submarine offers a completely different level of deterrence capability and that operating such a vessel will likely elevate South Korea's responsibilities both regionally and globally. Caudill also said combined naval drills in international waters of the West Sea remain an option when countering Chinese threats. Currently, most joint exercises are held in the eastern and southern waters off the Korean peninsula. He also expressed confidence that South Korea will play an important role in strengthening American shipbuilding capacity during his visits to local shipyards. Although legal limits exist on cooperation involving combat vessels, he said the two countries can move forward quickly on support platforms such as supply ships, auxiliary vessels, refueling tankers, and car carriers. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And Seoul's presidential office has rejected media reports claiming Korea's defense cost sharing will sharply increase under the new Korea-U.S. joint fact sheet. According to the National Security Council, the cited $33 billion in comprehensive support for U.S. forces Korea is not a new burden, but a 10-year estimate combining Korea's existing contributions with other long-standing indirect support, including rent-free land, utilities, and tax exemptions. The office stressed that the calculation excludes costs for combined military exercises or the deployment of U.S. strategic assets. It also made clear that the 12th bilateral cost-sharing agreement will not be amended and that reports of a threefold rise in contributions are completely false. So after a long delay, South Korea and the United States have finally released a joint fact sheet covering key details of economic and security issues. For more on this, we're joined today by Christopher Gotting, Professor of Political Science at Kookmin University. Professor Gotting, thanks for coming in today.
Good morning.
So we finally have the details of the joint fact sheet, right? What's your overall assessment of the paper?
there was a lot left to be discussed because the way things happen with President Trump is that basically he likes to announce big, shiny numbers on TV, and then generally details are left to be discussed later. So what we can see for now is that many of these technicalities have been addressed. And namely, as we saw in your previous report, Korean corporations are to invest hundreds of billions of dollars in America. So for now, what we can say is that Korean investments in America are to increase sharply. And at the same time, what we can also see is that Korean tariffs to America have also been significantly decreased from 25 to 15%. So it seems that for the moment, both parties, America and Korea alike, have come to some sort of agreement.
Right. And on security issues, the fact sheet now formalizes Washington's approval for South Korea's plan to build nuclear-powered submarines, but some say there are still issues left to be discussed because it's unclear where the submarine will actually be built. What's your take on this?
It is most unclear because on the one hand, a few days ago, President Trump declared that it should be built in America, and National Security Advisor Ri Song-lak said the exact opposite, that major components will be first built in Korea and then assembled we don't know where. What is interesting here is that this nuclear-powered submarine issue is typical of the difficulties Korea and America are facing here, because Korea has been putting a lot of money on the table. But in fact, the bottom line here is not only the money. The bottom line is where this money is actually to be invested. Because if, of course, these components are to be built in Korea, this will mean jobs for Korea. And the same, of course, if they go to America. And the issue is that in America, the industrial infrastructure is so deeply damaged that I do not see how realistically all of this could be happening in America in a near future. So long story short here, the problem is that Trump needs these billions to be invested in America, but also in American factories. And America, for the moment, is not in capacity to actually deliver. So for the moment, I think things are on a standstill, unfortunately, and contradictory statements are still to be released in the next days, I'm afraid.
I see. And what about the issue of changes of the role of, or the cost regarding the U.S. forces Korea? The presidential office rejected media reports, saying Korea's share of defense costs is set to increase. What's your take on this?
Well, the thing is that Korea has already been agreed to send a lot of money to America, because for the moment, what's been agreed on is a trade-off. Basically, Korea agreed to invest hundreds of billions, literally, in America in exchange for lifting, so these tariffs from 25 to 15%. So the Lee administration, from their point of view, thinks that so far so good, Korea has been delivering everything that could be reasonably expected. But that's not the way the Trump administration sees it, because right now, from Trump's point of view, diplomacy is all about business. And he's determined to get all of his so-called allies, Japan, Korea, the EU alike, he's determined to get them to pay as much as possible for their own defense. So the problem now is that here, I think that the more you give Trump, the more he will require from you. And this escalation, I do not see how we could stop it realistically. So for the moment, unfortunately, talks are to continue. And with Trump, there is no agreement you can call definitive. That's the issue here.
I see. And while that's happening, President Lee Jae-myung is now set for his first visit to the Middle East. What do you think President Lee is trying to achieve by visiting the UAE, Egypt, and Turkey?
In fact, what President Lee is trying to achieve here is alternate routes to diplomacy. Realistically, Korea had only one major ally, the US. And this ally, to put it mildly, is not as reliable as they used to be a few years and even a few months ago. So what Korea is trying to do now under President Lee's administration is trying to find new allies, not for multilateral, as in the past, but bilateral agreements, state by state. For instance, in the case of the UAE, it is the only major partner that Korea has in the Middle East, and so Korea is trying to strengthen ties with the UAE to push for Korean exports in the region as a middle power without being able to count on the US support as much as it used to in a very close past.
Right, and he's also, set to go to the G20 summit in South Africa. And this takes place as leaders of the world's two largest economies, Presidents Donald Trump and Xi Jinping, both decided not to attend this year's summit. What can we expect to happen there?
Pretty much the same as in the APEC summit in Gyeongju a couple of weeks ago. In fact, the time for world global agreements is over, and it is not to come back in any foreseeable future. What we have now is a time for face-to-face talks and bilateral agreements. So what Korea can expect to achieve is not a global agreement between, say, East Asia and African countries to lift tariffs. What Korea can expect here is to improve relations, in this case with South Africa, in order to boost exchanges between both countries. In fact, here, what Korea can expect is not a major achievement, but a sort of step-by-step improvement of relations between African countries and East Asian countries in order to somehow navigate these uncharted waters we're forced to navigate into because of Trump's re-election. So long story short, nothing major, but what is very interesting with Lee Jae-myung's diplomacy is that it is pretty much a diplomacy of step-by-step achievements, and so far so good. Korea has been able for the moment to compensate the loss it had to suffer because of Trump's tariffs. So let's hope it will keep going down this road in the next future.
Right, I guess we'll have to see how it goes. All right, Professor Goding, thank you so much for your time and insight this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. As the nation's biggest corporate players prepare to invest billions into the United States, a crucial part of concluding bilateral tariff negotiations, the companies have now unveiled multi-billion-dollar plans to create new factories and jobs here in South Korea. Our Oh Soo-young has the details.
South Korea's largest conglomerates are pledging tens of billions of dollars for domestic factories, advanced technology and new jobs, as concerns rise that expanding US operations could draw capital away from home. Samsung on Sunday unveiled an investment plan worth 450 trillion won, which is around $310 billion over 5 years for semiconductors, AI computing, displays and advanced batteries. It will also hire 60,000 people domestically and expand support programs for small and mid-sized suppliers across more than 1,000 partner companies. Hyundai Motor Group announced its largest ever domestic plan, committing 125.2 trillion won, or around $86.5 billion, through 2030. This includes roughly $17.2 billion a year for AI, robotics, EVs and hydrogen systems. The group will increase hiring to 10,000 recruits next year. These announcements came as President Lee Jae-myung met the heads of Korea's major industrial groups at the Yongsan Presidential Office on Sunday. The 2-hour session took place after the release of the Korea-US Joint Fact Sheet, which summarized the outcome of the recent tariff and security talks, including Seoul's large-scale investment into American industries. South Korea's private sector, including Samsung, SK, Hyundai and LG, is expected to pitch in $150 billion. President Lee thanked executives for their role during the negotiations. However, he asked them to ensure that domestic investment in regional projects do not fall behind as US operations expand, emphasizing the importance of local employment and balanced growth alongside SMEs. While Samsung and Hyundai set the tone with the most consequential announcements, other conglomerates followed with large-scale domestic commitments. SK Group is expanding its investment beyond $88.3 billion, while LG Group plans $69 billion, focused on key materials and parts. Hanwha will spend $7.6 billion on domestic shipbuilding and defense, and HD Hyundai will invest $10.3 billion across energy and marine technologies. Celltrion will double its bioventure fund to $690 million. President Lee emphasized that enabling companies to act freely and creatively on the global stage is one of the government's core responsibilities. He pledged to review a range of support measures, including deregulation, going forward. 오수영, Arirang News.
In other news, a Korean scientist who had been detained by U.S. immigration authorities for 4 months has now been released. According to the Korean American Educational Services and Coordinating Council on Sunday, Kim Tae-heung, who is a green card holder and has lived in the United States for over 35 years, was released the day before. He had been taken into custody at San Francisco International Airport on July 21st, while returning from his younger brother's wedding in South Korea. His detention caused significant concern in the Korean American community because the circumstances of the arrest were viewed as unconvincing. Kim was held at a detention center in Texas and is a doctoral student at Texas A&M University, where he conducts research on a Lyme disease vaccine.
Good morning, I'm Chu Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. Chileans are voting today for a new president and parliament in an election focused heavily on organized crime and immigration. This is the first of 2 expected rounds, with no presidential contender projected to reach the 50% needed to avoid a 14th of December runoff. Voters face sharply different options: Communist Party member and former Minister Janet Jara and conservative Jose Antonio Cost, among several right-wing challengers. For the first time in Chile's history, voting is mandatory for all eligible citizens, with millions of newly registered voters and fines for those who abstain. Preliminary vote counting results are scheduled to be announced at 8 p.m. local time on Sunday. Thousands of Mexicans protested on Saturday against the drug-related violence that claims tens of thousands of lives each year. In Mexico City, a peaceful march turned violent when some protesters threw rocks at riot police. Authorities report about 100 officers were injured and 40 were taken to hospital, with around 20 protesters also hurt. Clashes also erupted in Guadalajara, where 47 people were detained and several more were injured, demanding stronger security, pointing to the recent killing of a local mayor who had fought drug gangs. Mexico's president condemned the violence. In the U.S., a major feud inside the Republican Party is escalating as Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene and President Donald Trump break publicly. Greene says Trump's recent attacks, calling her a, quote, traitor, are putting her safety at risk. She told CNN on Sunday that she still supports Trump, but disagrees with his reluctance to release all federal files linked to Jeffrey Epstein. The relationship has deteriorated in recent weeks over Trump's focus on foreign policy and Greene's push for full release of Epstein files. The House is expected to vote this week on a bill that would force the Justice Department to release all unclassified Epstein records. The Vatican hosted several Hollywood figures on Saturday as Pope Leo met a group of actors and directors, including Cate Blanchett and Spike Lee. The event at Pope's Apostolic Palace aimed to deepen the church's dialogue with cinema and highlight the role of artistic creativity in promoting human values. The audience is also part of the Catholic Church's wider cultural program during its Holy Year.
After a lovely mild weekend, it got really cold again overnight, almost like winter just skipped the line and walked right in. We've had a big push of cold air from the north, so temperatures dropped fast while we were sleeping. Wind pushed the feels like temperatures down to near 0 degrees in the capital, and it will go down tomorrow even further at -4 degrees, but rather feels like -8 degrees. Meanwhile, there is a chance of rain across the west coast tonight. But as the temperatures will drop even more, that rain could turn into snow for Jeollado and mountainous areas of Jeju Island. And this afternoon, Seoul will be only getting up to 6 degrees Celsius, which is about 13 degrees lower than Sunday. Daegu, Gwangju will be getting up to 9 degrees this afternoon. A strong wind advisory on both the west and east coast will make it feel even colder. But some welcome news, this harsh cold will not last too long. From the middle of the week, things should start to ease up.
That's all we have for this morning. We'll be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.
Korea, a globally recognized sports powerhouse. Behind the dazzling achievements, there's always an invisible force at work. With sophisticated materials, cutting-edge equipment, and innovative technological solutions, SMEs in the K-sports industry play a vital role in bolstering Korea's status as a sports powerhouse. By integrating AI technology, they unlock athletes' potential and enhance performance, elevating the sports environment to the next level and opening new markets in the sports industry. Their innovative technology and bold challenges drive the growth of Korea's sports industry, creating a better world through sports. The innovation of these SMEs never stops. A systematic partnership support program is implemented to discover promising sports SMEs, provide technical validation and R&D support to enhance competitiveness, and strengthen the foundation for overseas expansion. At Tokyo Sportech 2025, the technological prowess of Korean companies was recognized. The Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism, and the Korea Sports Promotion Foundation supported K-sports companies with product promotion and business consultations with global buyers, demonstrating product quality and market potential, and confirming the possibility of expanding into the global market.
저희는 ICT 강국으로서 바이어나 사용자들한테 신기술을 접목한 생활 스포츠 기회를 실질적으로 확대할 수 있는 그 기회를 제공하는데 많은 도움이 될 수 있으리라고 확신을 합니다.
이제 스포츠도 K죠. K 스포츠는 이겁니다.
The joy for all, created by the power of K-sports. Experience the future of the new sports industry. through the innovation and technology of the Korean sports industry.
Optimal industrial infrastructure, convenient transportation infrastructure, key secondary battery cluster, future industries, a center for marine tourism, livable residential environment, an investment hub for a better future, Gwangyang Bay Area Free Economic Zone.
We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Monday, November 17th here in Seoul. I'm Lee Soo-jin, and this is News Generation. And joining us today is Ki.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Start of the week.
Start of the week. And also Cheska's with us.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So it's Monday and the start of another work week. And just a few days ago, students across the country took the Suneung, or Korea's college entrance exam. And every year it sparks all kinds of talk, not just about how tough the test was, but also about changing trends in what students choose to study. In Korea, students typically choose early on whether to pursue studies in the humanities or sciences, a decision that can shape not just their university major, but even their future career path. There's often talk that science majors have an advantage when it comes to getting jobs. So how are the sciences and humanities faring in terms of popularity among students these days, Ki?
Well, first of all, I couldn't choose because I like both. Then when we talk about jobs, and I've been told in Korea that there used to be a saying where you should look for some jobs that ends up with Korean word 사. So normally referring to high-paying professionals such as 의사, 변호사, 검사, doctors, lawyers, prosecutors. And that tradition sort of carried on until now. Now they look for engineers, programmers, and of course doctors again. And most of these jobs are STEM majors. So there is an even saying 문송합니다. 문과 being liberal arts based, and 죄송합니다 meaning I'm sorry in Korea. So put together, it's like a collaboration. 문과 문송합니다 for not being able to get that high-paying job.
So you say you liked both fields.
Yeah,
what did you end up going with?
I mean, I didn't go to high school in Korea, so I didn't really, choose. But then I ended up going to a business school.
That's also a good choice.
Yeah, but I regret not going to computer program.
What about you, Jessica?
I mean, first of all, congratulations to all the high schools out there for completing one of the most important steps in high school years. I mean, I definitely remember the pressure. And I think in Korea, there is definitely an underlying assumption that STEM majors do have better prospect when it comes to job choices. However, according to an article published in August from Hanwha, a lot of the STEM majors end up choosing to go to med school. So there is actually an imbalance of STEM majors in college as well. And if I remember, since Ki talked about his high school too, I actually applied as an engineer. I was a STEM major, but I transferred to political science in an American college. And one thing I want to mention is, if you remember your time back in 17 and 18, when we were applying for colleges, do you remember what you wanted to do?
It's really hard, right? But the thing is, I also entered as like a science major. I used to be a pharmacist major, so I can relate to like the change kind of phase.
Precisely. I think you're so young to decide what you want to do, and which is why I think this flexibility is increasingly important. College is literally called 대학, which means greater education. So I really want our young students to have the opportunity to explore their passion and even discover something that they have not known about before, instead of having to choose their preference or their major depending on the choices and scores from their 수능, a national admission test. So I do hope that a future school provides more flexibility, so students can really find their passion and purpose later in their life.
Right, going back to what you said a little earlier, so an analysis of the 2026 CSAT or 수능 preliminary scores, medical schools remain far ahead in terms of competitiveness. So med schools in the Seoul area projected at around 285 points, with regional med schools at 275. By contrast, even the most popular science majors like SNU's Advanced Converge major, Yonsei's System Semiconductor Engineering, and Korea University Semiconductor Engineering, these are the top 3 schools in Korea, all fall below med school cutoff. So it shows that despite the rise of semiconductors and AI, medicine is still the top destination for Korea's highest scoring students. So for a closer look at what we'll be discussing today, let's take a look at the screen. South Korea has long aimed to become a global leader in science and technology, especially in fields like AI and semiconductors. But the road hasn't been easy. While science and engineering remain some of the most sought-after fields among students here, many young, talented people have trepidations about pursuing their careers at home. Today on News Generation, we take a closer look at the data behind the growing trend of Korean scientists heading overseas, why so many young professionals in the field are considering career moves, and what steps society can take to better support and retain top science talent. So as we just saw in the video, it's clear that many young scientists are feeling uncertain about their future here, whether it's career stability, research conditions, or global opportunities are pulling them away. And this issue of Korea's brightest minds in the science field, not just choosing medicine, but also heading overseas, has been around for quite some time. So I've seen headlines about a new study looking at whether Korea's scientists and engineers are considering moving abroad. So can you break down what that survey showed for us, Ki?
Sure. So the Bank of Korea recently had a survey and a report addressing the ongoing brain drain in Korea's science and engineering fields. The report includes a survey of more than 2,700 STEM professionals, and the findings are quite striking. 37% of respondents said they are actively considering a job overseas, and among those in their 20s, the figure exceeds 60%. So if you take a look at the screen now, this is the graph for Korean STEM professionals considering overseas jobs. And if you look at 50s, about 30% of them, 40s, 36% of them, and 30s, we have more, 51%, and 20s, a whopping 62%. And if you look at by sectors, the willingness to move abroad was highest in biotechnology, pharmaceutical, and medical technology. And what is more alarming is that even in areas where Korea traditionally holds a strong competitive edge, shipbuilding, plant engineering, energy, over 40% of experts say they are considering leaving the country.
So the numbers that you just showed us show how serious the situation really is. It's not just a few people thinking about moving abroad. It's a sizable portion of young talent. It's striking that more than 60% of people in their 20s are considering leaving. And that tells us younger scientists and engineers feel that there are better opportunities elsewhere, and people aren't just thinking of leaving. A lot of this outflow is already happening. So, Cheska, how many STEM professions have actually moved overseas?
Yeah, Sujin, you're right. It has actually been happening for a while, and it is not a distant concern. Now, according to the Ministry of Science and ICT, between 2013 and 2021, so in less than a decade, more than 340,000 STEM individuals have left the country, and almost a third of them actually had master's or postdoc kind of level. And what's even more striking is if you look at from the talents that are migrating to the United States, the phenomenon becomes more visible. So in less than a decade, from 9,000 to 18,000 STEM experts have migrated to America and have been working, which is doubling in less than a decade. And things in South Korea at home is not looking the brightest. 316 government-funded scholarship recipients have actually decided to leave the track altogether. So it kind of shows that the structural challenge is not just in keeping the talent at home base, but it's almost keeping the talent who are young and bright-minded to stay on the STEM track altogether.
And what's even more worrying is that students who received government-funded science scholarships, the ones Korea probably most hoped would stay, are now leaving the field or the country. So that speaks to deeper structural problems that go beyond just salary. And this paints a clear picture that talent retention isn't just a workforce issue, it's becoming a national challenge. If Korea can't keep its brightest mind, it's going to be hard to maintain the momentum in AI, semiconductors, biotech, and other future industries. So with this kind of outflow already happening, the key question is why? So what's driving so many young science engineering professionals to consider moving abroad, Cheska?
Yeah, I mean, there are multiple reasons. And, you know, having a financially lucrative opportunity is not the only concern, but it is definitely a major concern. So let's take a look at the screen to find out some of the reasons why STEM majors have reasons to leave. Now, the first one was definitely financial benefit, with almost over 40%. So this was one of the top reasons, followed by opportunities for research and networking. And also one of the most interesting, if you look at the last reason, was opportunity for children's education. So all in all, if you look at the responses, one of the personal opinion that I had was that all the responses sort of show the stability towards future, whether it be financial benefits to research opportunities and guaranteed opportunities to work to children's education. I think it all ties into what the STEM experts want in their future stability. Now, if we come to talk about the salary, the matter becomes actually quite more serious. So according to a STEM expert, for one to receive its top salary, it takes about roughly 13 years, and the top salary would be around $366,000 US. Now, a domestic STEM expert would not only receive just a third of that, but it would take much more years to get to that level. So it's not just about, you know, how high the salary is, but it's also about the time that it takes to reach that level. And for young generation, as Key mentioned, I think a lot of our MZ generation cannot accept the fact that it is more time served rather than, you know, how much output or productivity we can generate. So I think that this is one of the reasons that it makes it very difficult for STEM major to want to stay in the country.
So these numbers really show how stark the gap is. It's not just that overseas salaries are higher, the fact that it takes 6 more years in Korea to reach the top pay bracket suggests a broader structural issue, one that directly affects motivation, retention, and long-term career planning. And for a generation that prioritizes performance-based rewards, that difference is quite hard to ignore. So pay is clearly a major factor. But when these professionals actually move abroad, what aspects of this time their work environment do they find more satisfying compared to Korea, Key?
So some of that Cheska already mentioned. What's particularly interesting is that when the survey focused on Korean STEM professionals currently working abroad, the one especially single area where satisfaction in the job environment was noticeably higher than in Korea was the research ecosystem. So it shows that beyond salary, factors like international collaboration with other parties, other talents, access to cutting-edge research infrastructure, and overall research environment play a major role in career decisions. And when you talk about STEM major, that's understandable. And other key considerations include promotion opportunities, job stability, and like Cheska said, children's education, all major factors shaping or where these professionals choose to work. And in Korea, the relatively short career lifespan in many science and engineering fields is another issue that pushes talent to look elsewhere.
And we mentioned a lot of different factors, such as the pay or like the environment. Just now, for you personally, what do you think is like the biggest issue? What would be for you personally?
I mean, if you have kids, obviously, children, education environment, can you just leave the children to go to school and go to work? You know, because sometimes when you are in a major research, for example, then it takes a lot of time, right? For stem cell majors, they sometimes have to put hours and hours just to get the results right? And they don't get that much of a vacation. That's probably they're giving better working environment in overseas, whereas in Korea, unfortunately, compared to overseas, it's looked less appreciated, it seems. So other than med school, of course. So hopefully, I think if we can provide a better environment in Korea, then it would change those talents' minds and then bring back to Korea.
So what about you, Cheska? You actually wasn't an engineering major. Do you think what could have been done for you to stay in that field?
I think he mentioned something really interesting because a lot of STEM majors have to go into PhD, which takes a long time. So family planning actually becomes a very important factor. But I would also like to emphasize compensation. I think it's really important because when you work overseas, I mean, we just talked about the triple in salary and the time it takes to reach that level, right? But for our generation, our MZ generation, I think they really prioritize compensation based on productivity, not just seniority based on the time served. So if we keep that model, I think it's going to be very difficult to keep young, bright talents in the home base.
And family planning, I feel like is really important for women in STEM. And we talked also about how people are choosing to go to med school. I feel like a lot of that is because of the compensation as well.
I completely agree, yes.
Right, so to learn more about this, we'll be speaking with a professor in the STEM field and hear firsthand about this talent outflow. And that conversation will take place right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out channel Arirang News. Click Posts and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Park Ju-young, professor at KAI's Graduate School of Culture Technology, as well as a School of Computational Sciences at the Korea Institute for Advanced Study. So hello, Professor. Thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Thanks for having me.
So to get right into it, so do you see any STEM students actually opting to work overseas these days?
Yeah, in fact, I do see an increase in the number. As far as those still receiving education are concerned, I think the primary reason is that they are more familiar with the international setting than the past generations already. So living and working abroad is a much less alien concept to them. And they are on average more fluent in a foreign language. So they are gaining more and more information on the work environment, the expected compensation, and career prospects overseas, and those are clearly contributing to the sentiment even before they become professionals later on.
So, Professor, I think you've covered a little bit of that. What do you think driving young STEM professionals to move overseas, and this might be your personal question, but if you've ever considered it, moving to other nation, what were your reasons?
Yeah, so in the case of the young trained professionals who do have real experience, we may need to pay more attention. So I have also read the study by the Bank of Korea that you have mentioned just now, with 40% of STEM professionals wanting to move overseas, which goes up to 70% for those in their 20s and 30s. The biggest reason they gave was the expected income, naturally, but followed by opportunities in the wider networking opportunities and career acknowledgement. So this means that it was not just the money, but a mixture with personal growth prospects driving the trend. And Korea's economy and the industry are becoming even more globalized as time goes on, so the trend is expected to continue. So personally, I did work as a researcher overseas before coming back to Korea. And as a matter of fact, I have to confess, I have considered moving back a few times. The primary reason being, in Korea, perhaps naturally, compared with the wider world, the research area felt narrower, meaning that I felt it was not easy to break new ground in the research that I wanted to pursue. So fortunately, I think I was able to find a way, but for a very young researcher, that will still appear to be a very sizable barrier.
Professor, thank you for sharing your personal anecdote. I think it's really important to know about this so that we can actually keep young, bright talents in our home base as well. Now, having brain drain become a global phenomenon, as an expert on the field, what do you think are some of the structural changes that need to happen to prevent future brain drain?
Yeah, so first keep in mind that an outflow of talent is not necessarily a negative thing because it can be productive and valuable for personal growth with a new experience, and we don't want to stop that in an unnatural manner. The really important thing is maintaining the net flow of talent between Korea and overseas, so we must find ways to attract Korean STEM professionals back with their experience and knowledge, and also talented foreign nationals. So to do that, we would need better expected living standards, more opportunities for networking with overseas workers, and also easier ways to start new businesses with the STEM know-how and ideas they have gathered from experience in education. And last but not least, Korea needs to recover the social and cultural atmosphere that encourage young people to pursue STEM because it's rewarding in more ways than just financially, Because one counterpoint to the appearance in the salary that you mentioned is that living cost is really high in North Korea and Europe in many cases. So, we actually have to consider that as well. And of course, as in any career, it is a satisfaction of pursuing your passion, not something that is dictated by others, in a friendly, respected setting that actually keeps the field vibrant and full of happy people.
Thinking about what you said about how, they should be encouraged to maybe and given more opportunities to also start their own businesses makes me feel like it's important to create an environment where, it's okay to fail a couple times. And I think that's also really important too. So thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely. The Korean society actually has been pretty strict on success and failure. But with so many opportunities and different technological advances, people will have to be able to try new ideas. And we actually have to be lenient towards failure and reward hard work.
I see, right. So thank you so much for sharing your insight with us today, Professor.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we just heard from a professor who sees this talent shift firsthand and explained why so many students are looking overseas and what Korea needs to improve if it wants to keep them. But the government isn't just sitting idly by on this issue. So Ki, what has the government actually done so far to stop STEM professionals from heading abroad to find work?
Sure. So the government has launched a private and public joint task force this year to address the growing outflow of science and engineering talent and to strengthen efforts to attract top researchers from abroad. Task force acknowledges a widespread concern within the field that Korea simply isn't offering enough incentives to make STEM careers attractive, like just we discussed, or Professor has mentioned. In response, it is working to reshape the ecosystem so that companies, universities, and research institutes can independently recruit, retain, and develop top-tier talents. And the goal is to create an environment where scientific and technological professionals can thrive and choose to build their careers here in Korea.
Right. So the government is taking the steps, forming a special public-private task force to address outflow and retention of STEM talent. So while these efforts are underway, the challenge still remains huge. It's one thing to recognize the gaps in attractiveness, but transforming the system and culture to retain top talent is a long-term task. So that's a broader plan. But what are the concrete steps for next year, Cheska? Are there specific measures included in the budget to train or retain AI and STEM talent?
Yeah, I think funding is really important. And the Korean government has actually decided to allocate 3 times more than its previous levels to invest in AI talent development and GPU infrastructure, showing an expansion and commitment to the global AI race. Now, the plan is to expand as many research opportunities and graduate programs related to AI and build a backbone for world-class innovation. The long-term goal is to cultivate almost 12,000 highly trained AI specialists who will actually lead the technological advancement forward.
So that is a significant increase. Tripling the budget for AI talent development and GPU resources shows the government is serious about nurturing the next generation of tech experts. So as we close today's discussion, Ki, what measures do you see as key in keeping STEM talent in Korea?
Yes,
key in keeping
that
STEM talent.
because, well, when we're young, there are a variety of different jobs that people look for. So first of all, I hope young people look for the job that they like and they're passionate about, just like the professors were mentioning. And speaking, that's somewhat relatable to AI. According to the AI Index Report 2025 that was conducted by Stanford University from the US, Korea recorded a net outflow of AI talent last year with with 0.36 experts per 10,000 people, placing the country at 35th among the 38 OECD member nations. That clearly says we're sort of falling behind. So we need to have a clear advantage. Fortunately, we do have some world-leading industries like semiconductor for AI, which can lure talents back to Korea. But obviously, we need something more systematical, so that a lot of talents can come to Korea for that sort of work.
Well said. So what are your thoughts on this?
I think our interviewer professor mentioned something really important. Brain drain is not the problem, it's the net flow of the talent.
Right.
So I think it's really important to make sure that the talent do want to come back to Korea or to their home base, so that they know that there are opportunities and the hard work has been rewarded and guaranteed. And also one last thing that professor mentioned was that he really doesn't want too much encouragement in the STEM major and want to give the students the opportunity to really pursue something that makes them happy, so that in the field there are people who are full of purpose and really direction of why they want to do and why they want to pursue something. And I think this is really important, because people who really love their job would actually work hard and stay in the field despite the compensation or despite different levels of opportunity. So I think changing that culture is also very, very important.
I agree. So what today's data really shows is that passion isn't the issue. Korea has plenty of bright young scientists. The real challenge is making sure they feel valued and see a future for themselves here. And that's something both society, the government, and institutions will need to work on together. By investing in better research conditions and broader opportunities, Korea can create a science ecosystem where young people don't feel they need to leave to succeed, and where maybe even global talent might want to come in as well. So that brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation. But News Gen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time with more stories and discussions. A big thanks to Ki.
Thank you.
And also Cheska.
Pleasure is always mine. Thank you
for coming in today. And to our viewers, thank you so much for joining us. And we hope that you have the best day. We are News Generation.
How to survive in Korea. Barbecue restaurants. Step 1. Taking care of your clothes. Put your jacket in the plastic bag. Seal it tight. If the stool flips open, store your clothes inside. Wearing light colors? Grab an apron. It's the best defense against oil splatter and smoke. Step 2. Bottomless side dishes. Basic side dishes at a barbecue restaurant. Eat, and eat as much as you want. Side dishes come with free refills. Oh, and if you don't see this sign, just ask, 사장님, 여기 밑반찬 좀 더 주세요. Simple, isn't it? Step 3. Grilling meat. There are various kinds of samgyeopsal in Korea. Place the meat on the grill. Turn it over when golden. And again when it looks done. Again and again and again. Step 4. Sam style. You aren't taking bites of sun like a taco, are you? In Korea, we have it in one bite. A pro tip here. Add only as much as you can handle in a bite. Gotta avoid awkward situations. Step 5. Enjoy the perks. After the meal, enjoy the perks offered as a Korean restaurant. Fabric refreshers get rid of the barbecue smell, while mint candies freshen your breath. Did you survive the barbecue restaurant? Hang on. Are you here with someone you want to impress? Then let's skip the garlic. Who knows what will happen?
Time to set the facts straight. Get Korea right. K-culture is sweeping the globe. K-pop, K-drama, K-movie, K-food, and even K-beauty. Korean cultural content is gaining more and more fans worldwide. It's indeed the golden age of K-culture. But with this growing interest comes an increase in misinformation about Korea. There's so much inaccurate information out there. Even AI can sometimes get it wrong. So, we must set things straight and correct all the misinformation. So here's the plan. The Voluntary Agency Network of Korea, VANK, and Arirang TV present the Get Korea Right project. Our Our goal is to provide accurate information on important keywords that come to mind when we think of Korea. Blatant errors and false claims that distort history. It's time to set the record straight, sharing the true history and culture of Korea while raising the national brand. Let's get started with Get Korea Right. Are you ready to join?